Chioma believed she had married the perfect man. Ebuka was wealthy, handsome, and charming, but behind his loving smile and sweet words, he hid a dark secret. Their marriage was a dream until the wedding night, when his cold touch sent shivers down her spine. Days turned into weeks, and Chioma felt like a stranger in her own home, unloved and unwanted. What would happen when love is just a cover for secrets too dangerous to reveal? Watch as Chioma uncover the painful truths in this gripping African folktale. The day seemed to be different and unique as Chioma stepped out of the salon. Her heart filled with excitement. Tomorrow was her wedding day, and she was about to marry the man of her dreams. Ebuka, everyone in the neighborhood admired their love story. Ebuka was wealthy, handsome, and charming, while Chioma was the perfect picture of beauty and grace. From the moment they met, he had swept her off her feet with grand gesture, sweet words, and promises of forever. As she walked home, she thought about their journey. Ebuka had pursued her relentlessly, showering her with gifts and affection. He was a man every woman wanted, yet he had chosen her. It was a fairy tale, and she felt like the luckiest woman in the world. But deep down, a nagging feeling unsettled her. There were moments, rare but noticeable, when Ebuka seemed distant, as if his mind were elsewhere. He was loving, yet something about him felt unreachable. Pushing the thoughts aside, she reminded herself that every marriage had its secrets, and love conquers all. The wedding was everything Choma had dreamed of. The hall was lavishly decorated, music filled the air, and guests whispered about how perfect the couple looked. As she stood before the altar, gazing into Ebuka's deep brown eyes, she felt all her doubts melt away. This was love, this was forever. But as she walked into their honeymoon suite later that night, she could not shake off the strange coldness in her husband's eyes. She told herself it was just exhaustion. Little did she know this was the beginning of a life filled with secrets, betrayal, and heartache. Choma had always imagined her wedding night as magical, filled with warmth, passion, and whispered promises. But as she sat on the edge of the hotel bed in her white silk nightgown, she felt an unfamiliar tension in the air. Ebuka was standing by the window, his back turned to her, staring into the night. The excitement from the wedding had faded, and an unsettling silence had taken its place. She took a deep breath and walked towards him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Ebuka, she whispered, pressing her cheek against his back. It's our first night together as husband and wife. Ebuka sniffled under her touch. I know, he said, his voice flat. Slowly, he turned around, tossing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I'm just tired, Chi. It's been a long day. He placed a soft kiss on her forehead. Let's get some rest. Choma stepped back, confusion clouding her mind. Something didn't feel right. Shouldn't this be the happiest night of their lives? She watched as he climbed into bed, turned off the light, and faced the other side. The distance between them felt like a vast ocean. She lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhymes of his breathing. The man she loved was right beside her, yet he felt so far away. Maybe he truly was just exhausted. She told herself, maybe tomorrow would be different. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Chioma began to realize that Ebuka was not the husband she had dreamed of. His touch was rare, his kisses were mechanical, and his eyes, those deep brown eyes she once adored, always seemed to be searching for something she could never give him. The first few months of Choma's marriage felt like a slow, painful unraveling of her dreams. She had expected passion, laughter, and companionship, but instead, she found herself trapped in a cold, distant union. Ebuka was the perfect husband in public, attentive, generous, and always quick to flash his charming smile. But behind closed doors, he was a different man. She tried to ignore it at first. Maybe he was just adjusting to marriage life. Maybe he was stressed from work. But the excuses started to run thin when she noticed that he barely touched her. He always had an excuse. He was tired. He had a headache. He had an early meeting the next day. When she reached for him at night, he would hold her briefly and then turn away. One evening, after dinner, Chioma decided she couldn't ignore it anymore. She had prepared his favorite meal, jollof rice with spicy grilled chicken, and waited for the perfect moment. As they sat in the living room, she took his hand in hers. Ebuka, is there something wrong? She asked gently. Have I done something to upset you? He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. What do you mean? You hardly touch me, she said, her voice almost breaking. You treat me like a sister, not a wife. Ebuka sighed and rubbed his temples. Chi, I love you, but marriage is not just about that. We have a whole lifetime ahead of us. Why are you rushing things? Tears stung Chioma's eyes. I am not rushing anything, Ebuka. I just want to feel like your wife. Ebuka forced a smile and pulled her into an embrace. You are my wife, Chi. Stop worrying so much. But even as he held her, she felt nothing but emptiness. And that night, as she lay in bed beside him, she realized something terrifying. She had married a stranger. Days turned into weeks, and Chioma found herself living a life of pretense. To the outside world, she was the luckiest woman alive, married to a successful, handsome man who provided her with everything she needed. But behind the door of their luxury home, she was nothing more than a shadow. Ebuka's coldness became unbearable. He barely spoke to her unless necessary, and when he did, his words were brief and emotionless. Nights were the worst. Choma would be awake, staring at the ceiling, while Ebuka slept on his side of the bed, his back turned to her. The distance between them felt like an unspoken wall. Neither of them dared to cross. She tried everything, wearing the most beautiful nightwear, cooking his favorite meals, and even suggesting they take a trip together. But nothing worked. Ebuka was always busy or tired, and every attempt she made was met with polite rejection. One afternoon, Chioma decided to confide in her best friend, Ada. They sat in a quiet cafe, and Chioma absent mindedly. Something is wrong with Ebuka, she whispered. I don't understand him, Ada. It's like he's not interested in me. Ada raised an eyebrow. Not interested? How do you mean? Choma sighed. He barely touched me. He doesn't even try. He's like, I married a man who doesn't see me as a woman. Ada frowned. That's strange. Are you sure he's not seeing someone else? The thought sent a chill down Choma's spine. Could Ebuka be having an affair? But with whom? He was always home, always distant but never sneaky. I don't know, Choma muttered, but I will find out. As she left the cafe that day, a terrible thought settled in her mind. What if her husband wasn't just uninterested in her, but uninterested in women entirely? Chioma had always trusted Ebuka, but after her conversation with Ada, she began paying closer attention to him. She watched his every move, studied his expression, and took note of his habits. That was when she noticed something unusual. He was always on his phone, texting someone late at night. One evening, as she stepped out of the bathroom, she saw Ebuka quickly put his phone away. Her heart pounded. Who were you chatting with? She asked casually, drying her hair. Ebuka looked up. Just a friend from work. A friend at this time of the night? He hesitated. We have a project deadline. It's nothing. Choma doesn't believe him. A strange feeling grew at her, and for the first time, she felt the urge to invade his privacy. That night, when Ebuka was in the shower, she picked up his phone. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through his messages. Most of them were business related, but then she saw a chat that made her blood run cold. It was a conversation with a man named Chidi. Chidi, I miss you. I hate that we have to hide. Ebuka, you know we have no choice, but I miss you too. Choma's breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook as she scrolled further. The messages were filled with longing, secret meeting, and hidden love. The phone nearly slipped from her hand. Ebuka wasn't having an affair with another woman. He was in love with a man. Chioma felt like the walls were closing in on her. Her husband, the man she had given her heart to, was in love with someone else, and not just anyone, a man. She placed the phone back exactly where she found it. She rushed into the bathroom. She splashed cold water on her face, hoping this was all a bad dream. But no matter how hard she tried to push it away, the truth burned in her mind. When Ebuka stepped out of the shower, he smiled at her as if nothing had happened. You are still awake? Chioma forced a smile. Yes, just lost in thought. She watched him closely, searching for any sign of guilt. But he was calm, too calm. He had spent months pretending to love her, lying to her face, and making her feel unwanted. The worst part, she couldn't even confront him. Not yet. Instead, she made a silent vow she would gather more evidence, watch his every move, and when the time was right, she would confront him. She needed to know the full truth. But as she lay in bed that night, pretending to be asleep, one question haunted her. If Ebuka never loved her, why did he marry her in the first place? Over the next few weeks, Chioma became a silent observer in her own home. She watched Ebuka closely, noting his pattern. He often left home early, claiming to have meeting. He received calls in hushed tones, always stepping outside before answering. One evening, Chioma followed him. He had told her he was meeting a client at a restaurant, but she wasn't convinced. She took a cab and kept her distance as she watched him walk into a private lounge. Minutes later, a man joined him, Chidi. They sat close, their heads bowed together as they spoke. Then, to Choma's horror, she saw Ebuka reached for Chidi's hand and squeezed it gently. The intimacy between them was undeniable. Tears burned in her eyes. Her husband was not only betraying her, he had never wanted her to begin with. If you were in Chioma's shoe, what will you do? Would you expose the truth or walk away in silence? Let's talk in the comment section. To everyone that has subscribed to this channel and my returning subscribers, thank you very much. I do appreciate you. God bless you. If you are new to this channel, hi, welcome. Don't forget to like, share this video and subscribe if you enjoy watching at the end of the story. Chioma spent the night crying. Her worst fear had been confirmed. Ebuka was living a double life, using her as a shield to hide his true desires. She was nothing more than a pawn in his game. But what was she to do now? Divorce was unheard of in her family. If she left, what would people say? As she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, one thing became clear. Her marriage was a lie, but was she brave enough to walk away? Chioma had endured months of lies, cold stares, and sleepless nights, but she needed undeniable proof. Proof that would force Ebuka to admit the truth, and tonight she would get it. That evening, Ebuka told her he had a late business meeting. His voice was casual, but Chioma saw the flicker of nervousness in his eyes. She nodded, pretending to believe him. But as soon as he left, she grabbed her car keys and followed him at safe distance. She drove through the dimly lit streets of Enugu, her heart pounding as she tailed his black SUV. Finally, he pulled up at a small hidden guest house on the outskirts of town. Chioma parked a few meters away, watching as he stepped out of his car and glanced around curiously. He wasn't expecting to be followed. Then, to her horror, Chidi emerged from the shadows. The two men exchanged a brief look before Ebuka reached for Chidi's hand, squeezing it in a way that sent a shiver down Chioma's spine. Without hesitation, they disappeared into one of the guest house rooms. Rage and heartbreak collided within her. She could not let this moment pass. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes. Summoning every ounce of courage, Chioma stormed towards the entrance. The receptionist barely had time to react before she shoved past him, her blood boiling. She scanned the numbered doors, listening for voices, for movement. Then she heard it. Soft laughter, hushed whisper, room 207. With trembling hands, she grabbed the door handle and twisted it. Locked. But Chioma was beyond reason. She raised her fist and pounded on the door. Ebuka, open the door now. Silence, then frantic shuffling. Chioma, Ebuka's voice was shaky. Open this door or I will scream until this whole place knows what you are hiding. Seconds later, the door cracked open, revealing a shirtless Ebuka, his face drained of color. Behind him, Chidi stood frozen, his chest bare, the guilt written all over his face. Chioma's eyes shifted between them, the messy bed, the discarded clothes, the unmistakable scent of betrayal hanging in the air. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, with tears burning in her eyes, Chioma raised her hands and slapped Ebuka across his face hard. "You disgusting liar," she spat, her voice shaking. "All these months, I begged for your love, for your touch, for your attention, and this is why you rejected me?" Ebuka opened his mouth, but no words came. Chidi took a cautious step forward, guilt flushing across his face. "Chioma, please, don't you dare!" She snapped her hands, clenching into fist. You ruined my life. Both of you. Her breath came in short grabs, her body trembling with fury and heartbreak. You could have told me the truth, Ebuka. You could have set me free instead of trapping me in this shame of a marriage. Ebuka swallowed hard, his eyes glistering. I don't want to hurt you. Chioma let out a bitter laugh. Hurt me? You shattered me. She turned on her heels, storming out of the room. She could hear Ebuka calling her name, but she didn't stop. She didn't care who saw her, who whispered about her. She had given Ebuka her heart, her body, her life, and he had chosen another man over her. But she wasn't going to be his prisoner anymore. Tonight, she was walking away. Chioma drove home in a blur, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly. Her knuckles turned white, her heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing with everything she had just witnessed. The pain of Ebuka's betrayal burned deep, but beyond the pains, there was something else. Clarity. She couldn't stay in this shame of a marriage any longer. By the time she reached home, her body was shaking, but her decision was firm. She was leaving. Moments later, Ebuka's car screeched into the driveway. He jumped out, his face pale with panic. As he ran towards her, she turned and unlocked the front door, walking inside as if he didn't exist, but he followed her, shutting the door behind him. Chioma, please, let's talk, he said, his voice desperate. She spun around, her eyes blazing with fury. Talk? Talk about what, Ebuka? About how you deceived me? About how you married me knowing you could never love me the way a husband should? Ebuka took a step closer, running a hand through his hair. I never meant to hurt you, Chioma. I tried. I really did. Chioma let out a bitter laugh. Tried? You didn't try. Ebuka, you used me. You used me to cover up your secret while I suffered in silence, wondering why my husband rejected me every single night. I was afraid. Ebuka shouted, his voice cracking. You didn't understand what it's like. Society would never accept me for who I truly am. I have no choice. Choma's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. You had a choice, Ebuka. You should have chosen honesty, but instead, you trapped me in a loveless marriage and humiliated me. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. I am leaving, Ebuka. I refuse to live this life any longer. His eyes widened in fear. No, Chioma, please don't do this. Think about what people will say. Think about our families. I am thinking about my family. She snapped. I am thinking about myself for once. I will not live in shame because of your cowardice. She turned towards the bedroom, dragged out a suitcase, and began packing. Ebuka stood in the doorway, helpless. You can't just walk away, he whispered. Chioma zipped up the suitcase and met his gaze. Watch me. Chioma knew that leaving Ebuka wasn't enough. She had to do the right thing. Proper thing in Igbo tradition. If a marriage was to end, the bride price paid by the groom's family had to be returned. It was a painful process, but it was necessary. The next morning, she called her father. Papa, I need to come home. We need to talk. Her father's voice was laced with concern. What is it, my daughter? Is everything all right? She hesitated before replying. No, Papa, I am leaving Ebuka. There was silence on the other end. Then, after a long pause, her father sighed deeply. Come home, Chioma. We will talk. By evening, Chioma arrived at her family's home. Her parents sat in the living room. their faces filled with worry. She took a deep breath and knelt before them, tears welling in her eyes. Papa, Mama, I have been deceived. Ebuka never truly loved me. He married me to hide a secret I cannot live with. His father's brow frowned. What secret? She swallowed hard. Ebuka is in love with a man. A shocked silence fell over the room. Her mother grasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Her father's face darkened with anger. He did what? He thundered. He married you, knowing he could never be a husband to you? Chioma nodded, her tears falling freely now. Yes, Papa, I cannot stay in this marriage. I want my freedom. Her father clenched his fist. We will return his bride price immediately. No daughter of mine will remain in a marriage built on deception. Her mother wiped her tears. My child, I am so sorry you have suffered so much. Chioma took her mother's hand in hers. It is not your fault, Mama, but I cannot stay with a man who does not want me. The following morning, Chioma's father sent a message to Ebuka's family. The bride price was returned without argument. Ebuka did not protest. Perhaps he knew he had lost the right to fight for her. And just like that, their marriage was officially over. After leaving Ebuka, Chioma needed someone to talk to. There was only one person who had always been by her side, her best friend Ada. She met Ada at a quiet cafe, the same place they had spoken weeks ago when Chioma first voiced her suspicion. But this time, there were no doubts, only painful truths. The moment Chioma sat down, Ada frowned. What happened? You look like you've been through a storm. Chioma let out a weak laugh. I have. She took a deep breath and told Ada everything. From the distant marriage to the night she caught Ebuka with Chidi. Ada's eyes widened in shock, her hands flying to her chest. Jesus, you mean to tell me that all this time your husband was... Yes, Chioma interrupted, her voice raw. I walked in on them. There was no denying it. He never loved me. Ada, he only needed a wife to keep up appearance. Ada's face turned red with anger. That bastard, how dare he do this to you? Chioma essayed shakily. I have left him. The bride price has been returned. It's over. Ada reached across the table and squeezed Chioma's hand. I am so proud of you. Many women would have stayed in shame, but you chose your freedom. Tears welled up in Chioma's eyes. I don't know what's next for me, Ada, but I do know one thing: I deserve better. Ada smiled, and you will get better, my friend. This is just the beginning of your true happiness. Chioma wiped her tears, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. Ebuka couldn't bear to stay in Enugu any longer. The whisper, the stares, the judgment, it was too much. His family had barely spoken to him since the truth came out. His mother wept for days. His father called him a disgrace, and his siblings distanced themselves. Even Chidi, the man he had risked everything for, had disappeared, afraid of the scandal. With nothing left for him in Enugu, Ebuka made a decision. He packed his belongings and moved to a distant city where no one knew his past, where he could start over without shame hanging over his head. As he drove away, he didn't look back. He knew he had lost everything. Meanwhile, Chioma focused on rebuilding her life. She threw herself into work, spent time with family, and found joy in her freedom. But deep down, she wondered if she would ever experience true love. Then one evening, at a friend's wedding, she met Chima. He was tall, confident, and kind. With a smile that melted her heart, they struck up a conversation, and for the first time in a long time, Chioma felt something stirred up within her. Hope. Chima was different. He pursued her with sincerity, called just to hear her voice, and made her laugh when she least expected it. He didn't hide behind lies or deception. He was open, honest, and most importantly, he cherished her. Months passed and their love grew stronger. One beautiful evening, Chima took Chioma to a quiet beach, knelt before her, and held out a sparkling ring. Chioma, you are everything I have ever prayed for. Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. She smiled and whispered, Yes. Their wedding was a celebration of love and second chance. Chioma, dressed in a stunning white gown, walked down the aisle with confidence, knowing she was stepping into a future filled with happiness. Chima adored her, cherished her, and made her feel like the most important person in the world. For the first time, she understood what marriage was meant to be, a partnership built on love, trust, and honesty. As they danced at their wedding reception, Chima leaned in and whispered, I will love you forever, Chioma. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder, and I will love you too. She had been through heartbreak, betrayal, and pain, but in the end, she found something even greater, true love. And this time, she knew it was real. If you were in Chioma's shoe, what would you do? Would you expose the truth or walk away in silence? Thank you for watching Folktales with Chinelo. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit on the notification bell so you never miss out on any interesting updates on this channel.